Hey, MCE crew, a while back we did a video on the loss of 800 million jobs globally by 2030 due to artificial intelligence, robotics, and automation. Now, will your job be one of those? And if you are no longer able to compete, if you're no longer able to bring your skill, your labor into the market and compete because a robot's doing it better, then what do? All right. We're starting to actually see the seeds of this transformation. They're starting to germinate, and we're going to get into that. And we're also going to talk about what you need to be doing right now. If you are between the ages of seriously 17 and 40, you really need to be making some plans right now because the world has changed and it's not going back. Now listen, when that report came out, and check the video out after this one. Again, I am pointing at a tag. I hope you see that. If you don't, then it's your settings. You got to look into your settings and see if you've enabled the tags to show. But when we did that video, one thing I did not say in that video, and I want to point this out right now. Estimates show that there are 3 billion people working in the world. Okay, now there are 7 billion people on the planet, roughly. 3 billion of them are employed. So if 800 million people or 800 million jobs are eliminated, we're talking 26.6% of the workforce. A quarter of the workforce, poof, gone, thanks to inventions like Sophia. Sophia, have you heard of Sophia? Sophia is really coming into her own. She is actually the first robotic citizen. And I'm going to get to that in a minute because that's just not a marketing ploy. The fact that they're building a robot as the first robotic citizen is extremely important for reasons that we'll get into in just a second. But Sophia and her sister, Grace, okay? Grace is the one that is going to be an ultra-lifelike nurse robot. Now, we know that here in the United States, and I'm sure in several other countries, we're just not hearing about it because the mainstream media is a gatekeeper. They don't like to give you all of the information, just enough to craft a certain narrative. But we know that a lot of healthcare professionals in the world, and in particular the United States, are pushing back against certain requirements. And they're saying, no, I'm not going to do it. And you know what? Furthermore, I'll leave this job. Well, they're now making a robot who's not going to have to get, the robot's talking. Can you believe this? It's actually taken over my computer. But we're not going to have to worry, well, they're not going to have to worry about a robot refusing anything because it can be programmed and exercise artificial intelligence in order to do certain jobs. These robots are not going to need to put in, hey, I need some vacation time. I want to run down to Miami with the family. Disney. No, the robots aren't going to do that. They're not going to call in sick. Okay, none of that. They're not going to require benefits. All right. They're not going to strike. Okay, your company and put up a picket line. None of that's going to happen with a robot. So you can see from the standpoint of a company. And listen, during this whole thing, I want you to think about it from the standpoint of a company, because you're going to need to think about it from the standpoint of an owner in order to position yourself correctly to profit. Okay, and you're going to need to do that because it is 26%. That's over a quarter of the jobs that are out there. A quarter of the people working are no longer going to have a job. Now, some of that will just be by attrition and it'll just evaporate and companies won't backfill. But a lot of that is going to be, sorry, guy, you're not even going to see an application or monster.com announcement or anything on LinkedIn because the job just won't be there for you. A robot will be doing it. Now let's talk about Grace. Grace is the invention of Hanson Robotic. excuse me, Hanson Robotics. And in 2016, they took the world by storm with Sophia. Now, you might remember Sophia came out and she said, they asked that robot something. I'm going to put the clip up in a second. And she said, I want to take over the world, or something, something similar to that.
Do you want to destroy humans? Please say no.
Okay, I will destroy humans.
And they tried to play that off as a joke. Okay, but okay. Anyway, on this channel, we discussed the financial aspect of it. On my other channel, The Quantum Closet, we might want to look into the other aspect of that statement by that robot. Anyway, Sophia, she was given Saudi Arabian citizenship. Now the Hong Kong-based robotics firm has unveiled its latest invention, Grace.
Hi, Grace.
Thank you, Sophia. Hello, everybody.
A humanoid robot it hopes will revolutionize health care. Designed as an assistant for doctors. Now, growing up, I always thought the assistant for doctors was the nurse, but hang with me. World is changing. What I learned 45 years ago doesn't matter as much. Designed as an assistant for doctors, Grace is equipped with sensors, including a thermal camera to detect a patient's temperature and pulse to help doctors diagnose illness and deliver treatments. The android is a companion for patients too. So let's move. Now they're moving it beyond just this diagnosis piece, just this clinical aspect of it. You know, raw data like temperature, blood pressure, and things like that. Specializing in senior care, Grace speaks 3 languages: English, Mandarin, and Cantonese. Now, I speak English, a little bit of Levantine Arabic, Techie Arabic, and Latin, okay, which is a dead language. But that's the best I got. Grace speaks 3 languages. And guess what? Programming her to speak a 4th is going to be a piece of cake. All right. So this robot can move around the world and be set up in various different, geographic areas with no problem whatsoever. And check this out. Grace can socialize and conduct talk therapy. So it's not just going to be like the robot you saw from the 1950s Lost in Space series where, that does not compute. No, this thing is going to be, much more personable. Okay, in this article, they also have a caption, and a picture rather, and it's captioned, "Robots are revolutionizing the healthcare industry with increased precision and diagnostic powers." Changji General Hospital, pictured, employs more than 50 robots to help care for patients. Now, if you've ever been in a hospital, maybe visiting someone in the last 15 years, you've seen the little robot, probably seen the little robot. He looks kind of like R2-D2, and he delivers medications, okay? The thing is just like a, trash can on wheels, basically. It doesn't interact. It does interact, actually. What it'll do is it will sense whether or not there's someone on an elevator, and if it is, the robot will not get on the elevator. But we're moving well beyond that. We are well beyond that with Grace. Robots like Grace are intended as a support for medical professionals rather than a replacement, says Hanson Robotics founder and CEO David Hanson. Now, with all due respect to Mr. Hanson, I am sure that he's not going to stop developing this technology and making it better and better. And one day, his company is going to be able to offer a robot that can replace totally a human healthcare provider. And to think otherwise to think he's thinking otherwise would also mean that you have to think that he's derelict in his duties as a CEO. If he wants his company to grow, that's exactly what he's thinking. His attorneys and PR guys have come out and told him, hey, man, you can't say this because, it'll cause an uproar. We got to ease this thing in here. We can't just, say, oh, yeah, in 10 years, we're going to have a robot that's, we're not even going to need a human nurse anymore. So he says using AI and robotics in this context can help gather important data for healthcare providers to assess the well-being of the patient. Now, so who does that right now? Right now, you might have a certified nursing assistant who kind of performs that piece of the puzzle when it comes to treatment of the patient. But that aspect of it sounds like his robot Grace can already pretty much do that. Okay. And if you're laying there infirmed, you got to get over some sickness or, injury, and you got a robot coming in, you might think, hey, this is pretty cool, and you call all your friends, hey, guess what? There's a robot in here treating me. Ha 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 ha. And then before you know it, iRobot, they've taken over. But seriously, let's move on now. Let me do one more thing here with Grace. Developed specifically for the medical sector. Grace's launch comes in the middle of the pandemic when there has been increased demand for telehealth solutions and contactless care. Grace is going to be highly less likely to spread any communicable disease to you because Grace doesn't have lungs, okay? Grace doesn't have a cardiovascular system filled with blood. According to the International Federation of Robotics, global sales of medical robots were already on the rise before the pandemic, up 28% between 2018 and 2019. And the International Federation of Robots predicts the sector's value could nearly double in the next 3 years. So I want to hit on this one thing before we leave Grace and go on and talk about law enforcement robots. Yes, RoboCop. Is the fact that they made her a citizen of Saudi Arabia. Now, you might think that's a novelty, but that's calculated and coordinated. Because if Grace is a citizen, then that means, what comes with citizenship? Certain rights, okay? Now, they obviously can't say she's got human rights, but they can give her citizenship, which carries certain rights. And if she's got that citizenship, then that means who are you to protest her citizenship rights that she shares with you? Okay, so this is a way to get people to kind of more ingrained with this concept of a robot actually being somewhat sovereign in the eyes of the law. So we'll see how this shakes out, but it's coming, ladies and gentlemen. And don't worry, we're going to get to a point where we're talking about how you can actually make some money off of this. You're going to have to, because chances are the job you're working right now is no longer going to be there. All right, let's talk about Hawaii. The Honolulu Police Department defends the use of a pricey robot dog taking temperatures at a homeless program. Now, this robot dog, you've seen this thing. It's developed by Boston Dynamics. And they've actually featured a version of this dog in some sci-fi shows. Anyway, the dog, known as Spot, cost more than $150,000 and was paid for using federal CARES funds. Honolulu PD video shows residents of a homeless shelter walking up to the dog, standing about 6 feet away. The dog scans the person for a fever. The image of the person and their temperature appears on the screen that's watched by a staff member somewhere far, far away. Okay? So they've got this dog basically set up in this homeless encampment, and the dog is patrolling, making sure that, nobody's running a fever. They don't say what they do if the dog finds out that there is a fever in the homeless encampment. Now, there are some critics of this. The sheer indignity of treating people like that, said Joshua Wish, executive director of the American Civil Liberties Union in Hawaii. You have people who are trying to get shelter, trying to get help, and they're being approached by a robot instead of an actual caring human being. It's downright dystopian. I agree with him on that. It certainly is. But that's the direction that we're moving in. A Rhode Island lawmaker also used the word dystopian to describe spots used by law enforcement before calling for a ban on the use of robot dogs. Well, that's not going to work. as I said before, the technology is here to stay. So how do you play this? I mean, the jobs are going to be replaced. You know, they're going to move over from humans to robots. And they're going to start this by saying, there are certain jobs that are just so dangerous that, you know, it'd be better if a robot did it, right? But behind that, you have to think about the income that's going to be lost by a human being, by a family. So we've got to think about this from the standpoint of an investment. And in so doing, we'll be able to somewhat win this. Now, look, the AI robotics market is expected to grow from $6.9 billion in 2021 to $35.3 billion by 2026. Okay, so within 5 years, they expect that market to grow by 38.6%. You might want to think about being a part of that from the standpoint of an investor. Now, of course, you have to do your due diligence. You have to find out who the players are in this market and figure out, you know, who's fit for the long run or who's well positioned to be acquired by a larger company and get a payoff. And maybe even, you know, you get, let's say Google buys Boston Dynamics. I think they owned them at one point. They divested themselves of it. But let's say they buy them again, just for example's sake. So, okay, they've done that. And so now you get some shares of Google and you move forward, okay, with that investment. You got to look at it from that standpoint. Stock management is expected to lead AI robots market during the forecast period. Robots are being widely adopted for stock management applications. Amazon Robotics, a subsidiary of Amazon, is one of the key players in the AI robots market for stock management applications as it offers Kiva, an AI integrated robot. Amazon has adopted this robot at its warehouse on a large scale. These robots and these artificial intelligence programs are going to be able to do logistics and all types of mathematically based operations much more efficient than humans. And that's just a fact, okay? Do I like the fact that we're going to be interacting more as the century progresses with robotics and artificial intelligence and even applications like, you know, the metaverse, which is, we talked about that with a reality overlaying our reality. Am I comfortable with that? No, I'm not. But whether or not I'm comfortable doesn't make any difference. It's coming. And I got to understand how to profit, and I want you to understand how to profit from this. Because if we don't, then they got a universal basic income check all ready for us, okay, to enjoy some subsistence living on behalf of the United States or your state government. You know what that means. You step out of line and decide to think you're a sovereign human being, and they'll cut that tap right off, and good luck finding your next meal. So this is what's going on. The robotics market is growing very, very fast. And it's time for you to start looking into the companies that offer these services. Now, we talked about Palantir. You know I invest in Palantir. And they are heavily entrenched in the artificial intelligence industry. You got to do your due diligence and start looking for those kinds of companies. I'm going to do some analysis on Hanson Robotics and Boston Dynamics to see what they're all about and whether or not they're publicly traded. I don't even know. Okay, I'm coming to you cold with this. But that's what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to link to all this. There's some good resources here in the description. You need to read it as the tip of the iceberg for your due diligence. I know this has been a long one. We're going to have some long ones, okay, going forward because it's a lot going on and we need to delve into it. All right, people. I will talk to you soon.